Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Above Par Golf Show. This week, we're going to be looking at the Palmetto Championship at the Congaree Club in South Carolina. It's going to be a really interesting weekend this week, mainly because this is pretty much a brand new course. So it's going to be brand new for a lot of the players out there this weekend. As far as I read, it's been a pretty restricted golf course since it's been built. So I don't think many of the players, bar maybe Luke List that I heard has had around there. So yeah, it's going to be a real interesting test for all of the players. So it's a par 71 golf course. We're looking at about 7,655 yards this weekend. So it's quite a long course. Especially, I think quite a lot of the par fours are going to be quite long this weekend. And there's also three par fives there that really need to be taken advantage of, especially by the longer hitters. In terms of how the course is laid out, it's got a lot more sand than it has rough. We're looking at Bermuda grass as well. And as far as I can see, looking at the weather forecast this weekend, it's supposed to be at least 2 or 3 days of rain. So that could really make things interesting. It's going to soften up the golf course a little bit and maybe make out for some tough conditions for the players. So as always, we're going to look at some of the favourites this weekend, some of the mid ranges, and some of the outsiders. And I think it's going to be interesting from like a betting point of view of choosing a winner as well, just because there's going to be a lot of players out there whereby in maybe a bigger event, or if it was an event that wasn't just before the Open major, you maybe wouldn't favour those players to go on and win. So looking at the favourites first, I think it's really hard to look past DJ first of all. I mean, he's been in really bad form, to be honest. His game just doesn't seem to be where it normally is. But then, he's from South Carolina. He does live in Florida now, but he is from South Carolina. He's going to have a little bit of advantage in terms of knowing how the weather is, and maybe has quite a bit of experience playing in the weather down there in terms of it being maybe a bit gusty and a bit wet. But to be honest, if we look at his, past tournaments, like I said, he got cut from that PGA, the Valspar Championship. He was tied 48. I think the best, one that he's kind of had in the recent weeks was a tied 13 at the RBC Heritage. But if we're looking at that PGA one in terms of his last one, it's a six over. It's not where he's used to being, and he also pulled out of the tournament that following that week, and I think it was a back injury. And he's had quite a few different issues with his back, so I'm not sure if he's gonna be the winner this week. But at the same time, I'm finding it really hard to pass up on him, just because, like I said, he is a local. He is, from South Carolina. Whether that gives him an advantage or not, I don't know. But this golf course, as I said, is a long one this weekend, so maybe that gives DJ a bit of an advantage there. And we all know that DJ is going to be wanting to go into that Open major next weekend in the best form possible. So he could be surprising us with an outstanding performance, or he could turn up with absolutely nothing. But I think he's one of the he's obviously the favorite, but he's obviously one of my favorites out of that kind of top bracket. But he isn't going to be my actual pick for this weekend. The second person I was looking at again is the second favorite, so it is a bit more of an obvious kind of suggestion. But I think Brooks Koepka at the moment is, he's found a little bit of form. He's playing some good golf. Um, I mean, I say good form. His last tournament in the PGA was a tied second, but then before that, he's had a couple of cuts, including the Masters. But then before that, he's also had another tied second, and then of course that win at the Waste Management Open. So yeah, I mean, I think he's got a bit of form. I kind of guess the only downside or question marks over Brook is, all of this stuff that's going on with Bryson DeChambeau at the moment is that kind of distracting me a little bit. And I think the second point, and more importantly, is we all know how much Brook loves to play in the Open or just in majors in general. And given kind of that, and the fact that he's obviously he always looks after his knee and his body. I'm not sure how much Brook is going to really, really give it this weekend, given the fact that he's going to be playing in that major and obviously wants to win that a lot more. So again, he's not my pick but he's definitely going to be up there. And him and DJ come in at 8 and 9 to 1, I think, in terms of the betting odds. Moving on to my two picks for this higher kind of category, and the reason I'm picking these is because I think, like I said, with the weather is looking like it's going to be pretty bad this weekend. We're looking at a lot of rain, probably a lot of wind down in South Carolina. And the way this golf course is set up, it kind of reminds me of almost like an Australian kind of golf course, or South African. So this might not make much sense, but my reason for going for these two picks in the higher category is because I'm favouring either some sort of Aussie or South African this weekend, or one of the European players. I think it's going to really suit European players this weekend, just because of the conditions, the style of the course. If you look at a lot of the PGA golf courses, normally they don't always favour the European players, and I think Tyrrell Hatton has mentioned that a few times. But I think this is the kind of golf course out of all the PGA ones that is going to suit those European players. So my first pick from the higher category is the man I've just mentioned, Tyrrell Hatton. He comes in at 14 to 1 for this weekend. I think we all know he's a great putter. He's great around the green. So although his iron shots and his greens in reg haven't been up to the kind of standard he's used to, I think if he can get that going this weekend, he's going to be really strong, and get some nice scores in every day there, and probably enough to be competing at the top come Sunday afternoon. And like I said, I think just with the conditions, he's going to be in those conditions as an Englishman, as a European. He's going to be used to it. He knows how to play in those kind of conditions. So he's my first pick out of the top bracket this weekend. The second one, for some similar reasons, is Matt Fitzpatrick. I chose him as one of my favourites last weekend, just because of the golf he's been playing at the moment. I think if we take a look at his form card here, he's not been. It doesn't look as good as he does when he's on the course. He's had a cut in the Memorial and a cut in the Brian Nelson, but he had a really good T3, T23 at the PGA Championship, and an even better T4 at the RBC Heritage. And then you can see here the kind of couple of months before that, he's had a T5, T11, T10, T9, and that T18, but that was in the match play. So he's playing some really good golf at the moment. I think again, he's a player that's really good with his short game and his putting, and that is also used to these kind of conditions. But I think with Fitzpatrick as well, he's not one of these big hitters off the tees. He's always going to be hitting fairways. So as long as he can do that, and keep the standard that he has in terms of his approach play and his play around the green, including the putting, I think he's going to be a really good. He's going to have a really good weekend. So he comes in at 13 to 1, and he's my kind of second out of that top bunch of the players. Looking at the final one that I didn't pick in that top range is Tommy Fleetwood. Again, I'm just kind of repeating it for in terms of the weather conditions. I think it's going to suit him. He's from an area of England that is used to kind of playing on golf courses on the coast, so he's really used to these kind of windy conditions as well, of rain. And I think that golf course is going to be set up for those Europeans, like I said. And he's going in at 25 to 1, which is why I didn't pick him, just because his recent form has kind of been really up and down. You don't really know what you're going to get from Tommy Fleetwood at the moment. And we can see that here: a cut in the PGA, a nice T14 at the Wells Fargo, and then a cut at the RBC. Masters wasn't a great performance for him, but then a T5 in match play, cut the week before that, and then a T10 in the Arnold Palmer. And then you can see here some higher ones when he was really trying to get back to form. So yeah, I'm just really not sure what I was going to get from him. And at 25 to 1, he's almost coming in at one of the favourites, or at least in like the top 8. So he just wasn't a good enough pick for me a good enough odd for me to go as and back him this weekend. So looking at now the mid-range players, I've got a few in here that I was looking at, starting with the ones that I didn't pick again. One of them was Patton Kazire. I picked him again last weekend. I think he's just been playing super good golf at the moment. As I mentioned last weekend, he's had five top tens recently. His greens in reg and his putting stats are looking really good. And he comes in at 45 to 1. So I think he's a decent mid range pick. So I'm going to go with him again. I'm not going to pick him, but I'm going with him as a recommendation again from the mid range. And then another player which I think is going to be really interesting to watch this weekend is Garrick Higo. If you follow the European Tour, you've probably seen that in the last five tournaments, he's won two of them, one at Canary Islands and one at Gran Canaria. So he was absolutely on fire in the Gran Canaria Open, played really well at the Tenerife and the Austrian as well. He did play in the PGA and finished tied 64th, but for such a big tournament like that, it's not too bad, and he wasn't really expected having much expected of him there. But I think the good thing about him playing in this one this week is the fact that this field isn't going to be as strong as some of the other fields. So this is where it gives a lot of these players where, like I said, maybe you wouldn't choose them in a normal tournament that have a much better chance this weekend. In terms of the actual two that I did pick, the first one is Ian Poulter. Similar reasons to some of the favourites I mentioned before with the weather conditions and being used to that. But Ian Poulter has a really good record in South Carolina, seems to like playing down there, seems to like the courses, and he's also putting and scrambling really well at the moment, as well as driving the ball well. So I think as long as he can get that ball in the fairway, he's going to give himself chances on the green. And he's playing really well, like I said, especially with the putter at the moment. And he always has been. So I think he's going to give himself a lot of chances this weekend in conditions that he likes, in a place that he seems to like in South Carolina. And coming in at 35 to 1, I think he's going to be a nice little mid range pick. The second one that I picked out of this is a local boy, a local man now, Lucas Glover. He's from South Carolina. Not that that means too much, but again, maybe it has some sort of advantage if they're used to playing on courses in those conditions in South Carolina. But apart from that, I think the reason I really picked him is because he's a great ball striker. He's decent off the tee in terms of his accuracy. So again, he's going to give himself chances, but his short game's, getting good. He's not been the best at it recently, but it is getting good. And the same with his putting. It's not been the best, but it is improving. I saw somewhere on the internet like some sort of practice round, not practice round, but like a practice session that he was doing with his short game, and it seems to have got much better than it used to be. So he's my second pick, coming in at 45 to 1. And then finally we've got the outsiders, and I've got a few here that I wanted to mention with including my two picks. So the first one is the one that I didn't pick, and that's Henrik Norlander. We don't know too much about him in terms of him playing on the actual PGA events, but he's a nice tee to green player. Has a really nice green in reg score. It's just that his putting and scrambling has been kind of average, to be honest. And his recent form really hasn't been that good, which is probably why he comes in at 160 to 1. You can see here is his last tournaments. He was cut in the Memorial, tied 50 in Charles Schwab, cut in the Wells Fargo, tied 48th, and then he had a nice T21 at the Zurich, but then four cuts before that, and then a 71 and another cut. So we can see why he's 160 to 1. But like I said, he's a nice tee to green player. If you can get that kind of scrambling and around the green / putting game going this weekend and keep it pretty solid during the week, he could be an outsider, right? He could be a nice return on investment at 160 to 1. And then the two picks that I made in the outsiders is a man I mentioned at the start of the episode, and that's Luke List. So Luke at the moment is driving well. His tee to green stats have been good. He's like a couple of the other players. His putting and scrambling has been pretty average at the moment. But it's just one of those things. If he can hit those greens in reg play tee to green well like he has been doing, those putting and scrambling stats all of a sudden aren't as important as long as he's giving himself some good chances. So I think another player that if he kind of plays averagely in terms of his putting and scrambling when it's needed, he could be a really nice bet at 70 to 1. And as I mentioned at the start of the episode, he has actually, funny enough, apparently, so I read, has got the course record at the Congaree Golf Club. probably because a lot of the pro players haven't played there yet and haven't had a chance to play it. But that's pretty interesting. He seemed to obviously like it when he played there. And then my second pick and my final pick, and it's the second pick of the outsiders. Quite a nice price on this player considering this weekend. Coming in at 70 to 1 is Russell Knox. He's been decent driving, good accuracy off the tee. Um, Another player that's got a good green in regs stats, and is also another good scrambler if needed. So I feel like as long as he can put okay, again, he's going to have plenty of chances on the green there, and he's going to be able to post some nice scores. And I think again that whole weather factor is going to come into how he plays. A man that's from Scotland, which, as everybody knows, has some really tough courses there in terms of the weather. So I think he's going to be really at home there. And yeah, I think he's going to have a really nice weekend. So that's all my kind of recommendations for this weekend, and my picks from the each kind of favorite mid-range and outsider category there. So let me know what you guys think. Drop some comments in the below with who you're picking, who you fancy this weekend. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give me a like. And then you could also subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon if you want to see my future content. All right, guys, I look forward to hearing from you and enjoy the weekend's golf.